Have you ever thought to ask yourself, why do I act the way I do right now with money? Why am I acting this way with money? What patterns or what belief systems made me start to think like this or start to act the way I'm acting with money? There's a quote that actually says, you can tell a lot about a person by observing the way they are with money. So who are you with your money? Hello, beautiful people, and welcome again to another video, another episode. My name is Tosin. If you are just tuning in, welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about money mindsets, pretty much how to move from scarcity to an abundance mindset. We've been going on a series talking about money, and last week we actually had our first live YouTube video. If you have not watched it, please go back and watch it. So many gems, so much information, so much knowledge to gain from. Now, as you know, as we were doing the video, a lot of thoughts started coming through my mind, right, about how this knowledge is actually beautiful. And while I'm grateful that this platform is a place to be able to share that knowledge, I realized that knowledge, though very important, isn't what truly changes us as people. A lot of people even know about these financial tips, about these do's and don'ts of managing your personal finance, but they still end up doing the same thing over and over again. And why do we always fall back into the same patterns? Why does it seem like you know the right thing to do, but you keep on doing something else? Like Apostle Paul saying that, the thing that I want to do, I don't do. It is another thing that I'm doing, sort of, right? There's a passage in the Bible, I'll put that somewhere. I truly believe the reason is because of our mindsets about money. And truly ask yourself, when someone mentions money around you, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you think of? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear money? When you hear how much? When you hear this is the price? When you hear this is your bill? What are the first thoughts that come to your mind? Are they feelings of anxiety, of fear, of discouragement? Are they feelings of pride? What are the thoughts that come to your mind when you hear the word money, or when you are in places where you have to have conversations about money? Now, the Bible does say that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he or she. Basically meaning that your thought patterns determine who you are as an individual. And while we look at this in every other area, the truth about it is the same for money. No matter how much knowledge you might acquire about money, if you have the same belief systems, the same thought patterns, the same very strong ideas about money, you would keep finding yourself doing the same patterns, doing the same cycles, month in, month out, day in, day out, year in, year out, especially with your finances. And especially with your finances. And one book that really helped me with this, one book that really helped me with this is a book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This book right here basically explains that no matter the amount of knowledge that we get about money, which no knowledge is good, and again, my last video, if you have not watched, please go and watch. We typically always find ourselves falling back into the same behavioral patterns and habits because of how we've been raised, our experiences with money, and some of the interactions, especially early on, that we've had with money as children. Now, as young adults, how do we fix this? How do you go from a state of scarcity to a state of abundance? The very first thing, I think, for a lot of young adults is to understand that you have the ability to unlearn. One major thing I realized actually, guys, about adulting, one major thing I realized about adulting, guys, is that you can learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? You can change your mindsets about money. Understanding that nobody really came to this earth with these ideas or these understanding. We were all taught. So in the same way that you have learned and imbibed beliefs, certain beliefs about money, you can also change that mindset. So one question I want you to ask yourself right now as you're watching this is, what belief patterns do I have about money? How have they served me? What belief patterns? Okay, let's say three questions. Three questions I want you to ask yourself right now. Number one, what belief patterns do I have about money? Write them down. How have they served me? Especially now as a young adult, you're now more aware, more intentional, about your growth journey. How have these belief patterns helped me? What can I do to change these limiting belief patterns? These three questions. I want you to write them down and be sincere with yourself. Answer it. Have a sit down with yourself, a conference, a Belgian conference. Sit down with yourself, a Beijing conference, right? Sit down with yourself and ask yourself these questions. How can I change these limiting patterns, these limiting money mindsets? All right. Now that you've written those three questions, please take out time. You can pause this video and sit down and just reflect on that and then come back to this. Okay, so now that you've written down these questions, let's move on. Two major mindsets that I realized, from studying the book Psychology of Money, from reading my Bible, from reading the Bible, is understanding that there is actually something called a scarcity mindset, you guys. It exists, and a lot of people are actually operating in it without knowing. Yep, scarcity mindset is a thing. There is also something called an abundance mindset. Now, let me put this in perspective so you are able to identify what is a scarcity mindset and what is an abundance mindset. So let's differentiate the two. Scarcity mindset. Typically, most people who have or have had the scarcity mindset are typically people who either didn't grow up with a lot. So you grew up and you maybe didn't have, in terms of resources now, money, growing up. So people from very humble backgrounds, um, people from very, very, very humble beginnings, right? A lot of the times tend to have scarcity mindset. Also, not just people from very humble backgrounds, but people who have had some significant life experiences that has shaken them. So maybe a major a major job loss, a major life change, um, a major financial circumstance that put them in a place of want or lack or need, right? If not properly managed, most people that have experienced that tend to come back with scarcity mindsets. Now, how do you identify whether you have scarcity mindset? How do you identify this? It's very easy, guys. The first thing is fear. Yep, fear. Anytime you hear anything about money, they are contributing for Shebi, they are they are raising money for someone's birthday, they are paying tithe in church or offerings, pretty much anything that has to do with money, especially when it has to do with you spending the money, or not even spending the money, you being asked for money, right? A lot of people, a lot of people tend to fall into that fear mode. If you notice consistently that every time somebody mentions money around you or the price, you are always agitated, you're always scared, um, These might be telltale signs that you have been dealing with a scarcity mindset. Another one is you unnecessarily hoard things. Um, it's sort of like a stingy phenomenon. That's what I'll call it. You are stingy both to self, to people. You don't like to give. You don't like to let go. You like to hoard things, keep it, because again, this goes back to fear. You are scared of losing the little that you have. Is just a general distrust in financial growth opportunities. You hear certain people that will say, man, I cannot put my money in all these banks, so I cannot put my money in all these fintech startups. What if one day they wake up and then they're not existing again and my money is gone? People who are not willing to take risks, who are, again, all of this is tied to fear, who generally distrust financial growth opportunities. I'm not saying people who are cautious, I'm saying people who generally distrust. Now, these are pretty much telltale signs of scarcity mindset. And a major way to deal with this, first, is to get knowledge. Second is to start to break yourself out of these limiting patterns by doing what people with abundance mindset do. And the third, quite frankly, is prayers, guys, because you need grace. You need the grace of God to do this. Quickly, so abundance mindset. So let me move on to abundance mindset. What on the other side are the telltale signs of somebody that has an abundance mindset? One, this person has a belief in the abundance or availability of opportunities. What do I mean? They never believe that they are going to ever be at a loss. They never believe that just because they lost an opportunity, it wouldn't happen to them. They believe that there is always going to be another opportunity and another opportunity. It's kind of like being optimistic and positive that good things always come to me, that all things are working in my favor. These are telltale signs of an abundance mindset. The second telltale sign is generosity. Generosity. Repeat after me. Generosity. Right? The best givers are not always the wealthiest of people in terms of resources, but they are the wealthiest of people because they give. So generosity is a big telltale sign of an abundance mindset. So if you find yourself hoarding, one major way to deal with this is to move on to generosity. Give people, give yourself, give to the church, give to the work of God. Give. Let go of things that don't serve you anymore. Give. It's a big telltale sign of abundance mindset. Another telltale sign is the willingness to take calculated risk. Note, I am saying calculated risks. The willingness to take calculated risks. And finally, people with abundance mindset have gratitude, a spirit of gratitude. They're always grateful. They never complain. They are grateful for what they have, where they are, knowing that greater things are coming their way. Okay, guys, so these are just some of my thoughts on money mindset. I still recommend you getting the book Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It will help you on moving on from scarcity to abundance. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.